Time now for Facts or Facts. Think about the last movie or TV show you watched. Did it mention anything about climate change? While scientists agree climate change is among the most pressing issues of our time, the problem isn't making its way into the entertainment we watch. In fact, researchers looked at more than 37,000 scripted TV episodes and movies made between 2016 and 2020 and found only 2.8% of them made any mention of climate change. That is not a lot.
No, and if you're thinking, okay, who sat down and did that research? It's a team of people who are making it their mission to tell more climate stories in the media. And Anna Jane Joyner is the founder and CEO of Good Energy. Anna, thank you so much for joining us today to talk about this. So why do you think it is so important to have climate stories in entertainment media?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of reasons, but one of the biggest one is just it's becoming a disconnect between the world of the stories that we see in television and film. It's no longer the world that we live in anymore. And that kind of perpetuates this false sense of normalcy, which can lead the audience to paralysis or just like looking the other way. So even just mentioning climate change in the world of your story validates to the audience that these characters that you love and are connected to are also experiencing something that's very real for most of us at this point. And also we need stories, we've been telling stories for 50,000 years. And the reason that researchers think we started telling stories was to navigate the more difficult parts of being alive, loss and death and all of those things that humans inevitably experience. So we desperately need stories that help us, learn how to be human in this new age of climate change and find courage and process, the grief and anxiety and envisions a better world.
So do you think that Hollywood doesn't want to make content about climate change, or do you think that the audiences don't want to watch it?
I mean, this is a new way of telling stories. There's not precedent that we can turn to for inspiration. And I think that, any creative telling a story that hasn't been told before, that takes going out on a limb. And so I think there has been, in the past, I think there was worry about it being too controversial, but we know from Yale's research on American audiences that 70% of American adults are now worried about climate change. And the biggest bucket of the 6 audiences that they study are the alarmed. There's about 30% of us who are alarmed. The next biggest bucket is the concerned. And so audiences increasingly are worried about this. We are feeling it more and more in our daily lives. I live on the Gulf Coast. You cannot get away from it if you live down here. So I think definitely audiences are more and more wanting to see that. And we've researched that. We researched it with USC's Media Impact Project at the Norman Lear Center, who did our frequency analysis with us. But basically, we consistently asked, do you remember seeing climate mentioned in a television show or film? Overwhelming response was, I don't remember.
Yeah. I feel like you remember kind of those bigger, blockbustery, overwhelming, they kind of hit you in the face kind of thing. So how are you helping Hollywood make these stories a priority?
Yeah, so we have a playbook for screenwriting in the age of climate change that is free and available to all on our website, which is goodenergystories.com. We also do workshops and we do consulting, so directly supporting screenwriters working on television and film shows. And really what we do is just ask, if your characters were real people out in our world, how would they authentically be encountering climate change in their lives? And once you can dig into that, it becomes clearer how it naturally would show up for your characters.
So there's a lot of people that try to do things for climate change, but why did you go in this direction with your participation in climate change?
Yeah, twofold. One, I've worked on climate change my whole career. So I just hit 15 years straight out of college is when I started, actually in college. And, it's hard. It's hard focusing on this issue for the vast majority of your time. And I live on the Gulf Coast, which is definitely on the front lines of climate. So I come from a family of storytellers and writers. And I knew, to process my own anxiety and to really learn what it means to live in this new age of climate change, that I needed the stories. I needed my experience reflected on screen. And then also as a communication strategist, which is my specialty, I know that stories are the most powerful form of communication. And, we have a lot of great science and policy and facts, but what we don't have is stories. And that's really what emotionally moves people.
So what are some of the stories or projects that you've actually worked on? Would we know any of them?
You would, but we can't say because we're under NDAs.
Okay.
But I could share some of my favorite ones out there.
Maybe, yeah.
Some of my,
yeah, what are your favorite
sure,
ones? Maybe that'll lead to maybe something that you've worked on. So go ahead.
Yeah, so there's a great new Apple TV show that just came out last month. It's still, episodes are airing every Friday. It's the first scripted television show in our history that is focused on climate change. It's by Scott Z. Burns. And his goal was really not to explore the apocalypse, which is when the rare times we do see climate on screen, it is oftentimes the apocalypse. But he really wanted to experience, show the everyday of what it feels like to live through this and kind of the messy middle. So not a utopia and not an apocalyptic situation, but like really where we're likely headed. And so I love how personal that show brings it and just makes it about, how do we love and exist and, be human in this moment. I also love Beasts of the Southern Wild, which is an Oscar-nominated film that came out a while ago, but it's set on the Gulf Coast, and it really beautifully depicts, not only the experience of being on the front lines of climate, but also the inequality and injustice of some communities, down here, mostly BIPOC communities, and that's true from around the world, who experience it, really first and worst. And it's just a gorgeous film.
Yeah, really quick. We only have like 30 seconds left, so I just wanted to get to, do you think that these doomsday kind of blockbuster movies actually hurt us when we're trying to get across climate information opposed to having just little Easter eggs, if you will, like, oh, I don't want to use a straw, thank you, type of a thing in a movie?
I think the Easter eggs are really critically important, but I also think, what I'm far more worried about than writers getting it wrong is just continuing to ignore it. So I think in 99% of the cases, acknowledging climate is more beneficial than not.
No matter what it is. All right, Anna Jane Joyner, founder and CEO of Good Energy. Thanks for joining us. And maybe once these shows are out, you'll let us know so we can find out, though.